one of the other things that we're hearing a lot of discussion about these days is network slices, and this how 5G network slices are changing the opportunity. What we can do with the 5G core networks. Can you talk a little about where you see network slicing going and what kind of opportunity that presents to companies, IoT companies, the autonomous world that we envision for the future?
Sure. So 5G standards envision multiple use cases. One use case for 5G is just faster smartphones, deliver more data to your smartphone and make the standard user experience better. There's also a variety of other use cases that are mentioned for 5G focused on primarily industrial automation. Industrial automation doesn't have the same sort of look and feel in terms of the way that traffic flows and the expectations you have of that traffic. If I'm downloading a email on my phone, I'm okay if there's a short interruption and it needs to resume. If I'm a component in an electrical grid, a short interruption of service can be catastrophic. So when the 5G standards were developed, they had this strong focus on enabling a wide range of quality of service. And quality of service really is thought in terms of the latency and the speed that you can deliver and the service level agreement that you can provide along with that. And for industrial applications, that's extremely important. However, in my opinion, security is just as important as rate and latency in the delivery of service to these industrial applications, because adversaries who seek to disrupt the network, if they're able to disrupt the network, then that affects the rate and the latency at which messages are delivered. And so a large-scale disruption attack could severely impact an industrial application that's using 5G. And so that's one of the unique features of network slices. Network slices were specifically designed to provide QoS or quality of service differentiation, but they can also be used as a way to provide an additional layer of security to isolate that network traffic from potential threats. So I see the opportunity for a whole range of different industrial applications to establish independent network slices, not only to really try and get their arms around the quality of service that they need, but also to provision their own security regime that helps defend against the specific threats to their industry. Now, I'll note that there's also the opportunity to take advantage of network slicing outside the industrial applications. There are certain, I talked about the example of 5G making your smartphone faster and better. If your smartphone happens to be part of a government network, then it perhaps has higher security requirements than a standard consumer smartphone does. And so there's public sector interest as well around establishing a network slice specifically for sensitive information or devices that might connect to sensitive networks or share sensitive information. And I think that's yet another area that has a lot of opportunity for 5G to provide increased security for the public sector.
When you start to think about the wireless industry overall and some of the challenges that as they kind of roll out 5G, we kind of heard some pushback from the aviation industry that seems to have been overcome. What do you think as you kind of started and looked at and were involved with SecureG and the wireless industry and kind of the public sector interest, where do you see kind of the public, private, and kind of wireless industry coming together and that interest, in particular that intersection of the public sector interest and the wireless industry interest?
Well, telecommunications is one of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors here in the United States. It happens to be one that is heavily run by the private sector. Major telecommunications companies run the fiber optic infrastructure, cellular carriers run the cell towers, and they're all seeking to do that in a way that is secure against adversaries and resilient to all kinds of different threats. And so I see the security of not just the US, but really the global telecommunications infrastructure as a key public equity. And there's only so much that federal agencies can do to directly secure that infrastructure. They can share information about threats. They can try and create regulatory regimes to help ensure a minimum level of security across that infrastructure. But as I can contemplate it early on, the opportunity for SecureG, it really was a way to bring together not just thinking about or trying to regulate the security of the wireless industry, but actually bring solutions forward that could cut across the industry and provide common security solutions that would both increase the security from a critical infrastructure perspective and bring capability to the wireless carriers that would be interoperable if they all work together on it.
So you bring up an interesting concept, which is this interoperability and also trust. So as you think about trust and things that then enables, can you maybe fast forward a few years, or what are some of the key use cases that you see with greater trust, greater collaboration, better interoperability across network boundaries, and how maybe security and trust can help enable that?
Well, certainly there are a whole range of industrial applications we envision for 5G that security could better enable. I think there are some where security is perhaps more important than others, and that really gets to safety critical applications. So any application that is examples of which would be, say, connected vehicles, drones. These are scenarios where you have IoT devices that, if exploited by adversaries, could affect lives. And so I think one of the huge opportunities is the intersection between the autonomous things and 5G and the ability to secure that interface. I'd say outside of the telecommunications space, there's a whole range of things where trust is needed. I mean, I think across the board, particularly in the broad concept of supply chain, we're rethinking what supply chain trust looks like, all the way from hardware to software to users. And as we have greater concern over certain elements of that supply chain being compromised, the ability to prove end-to-end from silicon to user that the whole system is secure is another key area that we need to make progress on. And again, I think PKI is a unique resource to address each of those layers, and SecureG is a unique platform to enable that.
So the supply chain, I think we could do a whole half-hour conversation on supply chain and the challenges with the supply chain and how much headlines it's grabbing. But thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's really been insightful, and appreciate sharing kind of the early days of SecureG and kind of the vision that you helped kind of shape for the company.
My pleasure.